Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love. This is Robyn Vogel, and I am here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. I'm your host. I'm a love and intimacy coach, an IFS therapist, and the creator of Ready for Love in 90 Days. This is a sacred space where we explore the real, raw, and beautiful journey of coming home to love, starting with ourselves and extending to the relationships we long to heal, deepen, or ignite. Each week, I'll share powerful tools, heart opening stories, and transformational insights to help you release the old patterns that keep love just out of reach. Whether you're healing from heartbreak, feeling stuck in familiar dynamics, or simply craving deeper connection, you're in the right place. Today, I have a special guest with me, and his name is Ken Barringer, and I am so excited to introduce you to him. Ken has worked in mental health since 1984 and specifically with grief and loss since 1996. Ken provides individual and group counseling support to grievers, as well as delivering training and consultation to schools, businesses, and organizations following a loss. Ken is an adjunct faculty member at Lesley University, where he designed and teaches a course in grief. Additionally, he produces a monthly newsletter and hosts the podcast Grief in Brief, which is how I found you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And we happen to live very near each other, so we had the
That's right. That's right.
pleasure of meeting in
Saying
person.
sometimes things line up, you know,
Yes,
if we're
exactly.
if we're aware and attentive. But thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. It's I'm really excited to be here and chat with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Just before we began, we were talking about something more personal, and that is that today, the day we were recording, is the anniversary of my father's passing.
Mhm.
He died when he was 63, which is pretty young. And
Very.
I was sharing with you that I'm turning 60 soon. So it all sort of came together because you said, "Hey, how is that for you?" And I was like, "Actually, it's significant because the years that I live here on the planet are significant to me. My mother did not have that blessing. She died very
hmm
young. And
hmm
my father didn't really live all that long either. 63 is pretty young."
No, it is very young. And I think we live in our story, we live in our grief differently over time. And
Yeah.
it's always like a curious spot when I am now living longer than my parent did, or my partner did, or, whomever the case may be. And it can feel, and I think it's important just to note it, and not necessarily that we have to do something with it, but just
Hmm.
to note it and to be aware of it. And what it feels like today might feel different a year from now.
Hmm.
It might feel different a week from now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could even feel different tomorrow or tonight.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because the one thing that we know is that grief is personal, um, and that it's fluid. It changes. That
Hmm.
we don't ever really we don't, the old way of thinking was, you got to move on. And now it's more the thinking is how do I move forward with and carry my person and carry my story with me because, we move on from things that don't matter. We move forward with things that do, whether they are, physical beings and relationships, or whether they're, attachments of a memory or a home or a not or a, physical possession.
I'm so glad that you brought that up right in the beginning of our conversation. That is such a huge piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to say that, you'll move on, just move on.
Right, right. And I have so many people who reach out to me, they want to come in for counseling because they feel like they're, and I'm putting this in quotes, they're like screwing up their grief. They're messing it up. They're not doing it right because they still have, you know, these intense moments of sorrow or sadness. And it's been like a year later. you know or
Like,
they feel like they're not grieving yet, because they have such a limited image of what grief is supposed to be,
yeah,
that I actually had somebody say to me once, I'm not laying in my bed crying and despondent so I don't feel like I'm grieving. Like that's their only image of what grief is supposed to be.
yeah.
And we
It's,
know it can just look so different and show up in so many ways. It shows up in our body, it shows up in our cognition, It shows up in our behavior. It shows up just in our spiritual beliefs. So it really manifests so many ways and so differently. But, if you are of a certain age, you were never taught that. You were taught like once the service or the ceremony ended, then, it's like getting over a cold. Now, you were down and now you're back on your feet and get back to your life.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's like I'm laughing, but it's so sad. I mean,
Yes,
that's how it was for me. And I just,
absolutely. Yeah.
I just wrote a book on the topic, or,
Hmm.
part of the book is on that topic, and it recalls the story of, yeah, going to a funeral for my mother, and then like, okay, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
we never
What are you
talked
doing?
about her again.
Yeah, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, go back to school. That's
Yeah.
the end of that. Never talked about her, maybe once or twice, but
Hmm.
she
Hmm.
was just gone, swept under the carpet and under the
Right.
couch, under everything, and in
Yeah.
all the crevices in the entire home.
Yeah. And I think one of the mindsets or the mentalities was, especially from adults to kids,
Mm.
was don't talk about it because you
Right.
might make somebody upset, you might make somebody feel bad, but it's the exact opposite. That is the path to healing, is talking about it. The way to
Yes.
feel better is to talk about it. And, we're so averse to like pain,
Yes.
have more pleasure, have less pain. Like then you had a good life. And we're so averse to it. But to me, that's living half a life because there's pain in life, you know? And when we can honor it and acknowledge it, it actually allows us to live more balanced and more fully.
Beautiful.
You
Wow.
know,
You
like
just
like we
gave
don't
me.
know what happiness is unless we know what sadness is,
Mhm. That's right.
you know?
That's right. That's
But
right.
but that was the old mindset, was protection, and it actually created so much the opposite, you
It
know?
really did.
Yeah.
It didn't create protection at all. It created
No,
such
no.
trauma.
And I think also, especially with kids, like if they're not, like, they just make up whatever they think the story is if they're
Right.
not given information about it.
That's
And
right.
often what they make up is way worse than what the truth is. So
100%.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's sort of in a little irony, but connected. So the company that I founded to do the grief work is called Healing. But it's an acronym for helping everyone accept loss instead of neglecting grief.
Mm,
Because, I think that's what we do. Like when we don't acknowledge it and we don't accept it, we actually are neglecting our grief, which
yes.
then shows up in all these other bizarre ways, including, health issues.
Yes. Very much
But it,
so.
but if we can acknowledge it, if we can, accept it, and acceptance is fluid too. Like, you were talking about your mom and your dad before. It's like we're still accepting that,
Hmm.
even something that happened years ago, because now it looks different and it feels different.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I love that you said that. First of all, I love just being with you with this, because
mm,
it's so important to me in my own journey. And
right.
what you said just resonates so much. It's like
Hmm.
pleasure is important, but the grief and the
Right.
pain equally important.
Right.
And part of my growth and learning was how to hold both, and to really understand that it was possible to hold both.
Exactly, exactly. And I forget who said it, but somebody said it. Somebody way smarter than me said it. Like it's a sign of really a sophisticated society when you can hold paradoxical emotions simultaneously. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to hold just one. You can really be sad and upset and also be looking forward to something,
Hmm.
you know?
Right. Yes. Yes, we're
Um,
complex beings.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's so important to give ourselves permission to do that.
I think it's vital, like you said, because is it really living if you're only holding some of what
Right.
living is all about?
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I feel like too that like to deny the pain is to deny what's of value to me.
Hmm. Yeah, to deny the pleasure, right, of
Yeah,
what was valuable to you.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. I totally get that.
Hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow.
Yeah,
So to me, it takes quite a person to dedicate their lives to grief.
yeah,
And I think there are, l- I think it's fair to say there are less people on the planet who have dedicated their lives to grief and healing if we
hmm,
compare it to people that have dedicated to pleasure.
right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
it's quote
Very
unquote more fun.
disproportionate.
Yes, extremely disproportionate.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, is what inspired you? What drove you to organize your whole life and living around this important work?
Yeah. It sort of ties into something we were just talking about a few minutes ago, in that, um, I am the youngest of an old family. I'm the youngest member of a very old family. And so, growing up, it seemed like somebody was always dying, and it was kind of natural. People were older and they died, and, illness and things of that nature. So it was never like uncommon to me. And I also had a number of friends die, between my ages of, you know, really like 11 and about 19. I had a number of friends die within that period and die of all different kinds of like sudden
Yeah,
traumatic ways. And
unusual.
the thing that really stood out to me was like nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever acknowledged it, no, other than like the services, like you went to a wake, you went to a funeral, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And I really remember even as a young kid feeling like, okay, I don't need to just like go to school and play sports. Like there's something else that needs to happen here. And why does nobody talk about it? And I remember thinking like, when I grow up, I'm getting a job where we talk about it.
Oh, I love that.
Because it felt like, and also for me as a male,
Mm,
males certainly weren't encouraged to
right,
talk about or explore their feelings,
right.
in the 60s and 70s. And I was always like, why not? Like, why aren't we supposed to do this? We should be able to do this. So
Yeah,
I think
didn't
just
make sense to you.
and I think because of so many losses, young, I just kind of got comfortable with it. I got comfortable with the idea of the impermanence of
Mm,
life.
mm.
Way before I started studying Buddhism. Just kind of this sense that like things change and we're all sort of day to day, and that discomfort always felt kind of comfortable to me. It was counter.
Mm,
So, you know,
yeah.
I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt like I didn't really have a choice, and I'm happy for that.
Hmm.
No, I'm glad for that. And I think, I was doing grief work before I knew I was doing it too, like
Mm,
early in my career, because I
that's it.
always sort of looked at things from like a perspective of loss, and
Got it.
not just death loss either.
Yeah.
Like, working with a student who had special needs, what that loss might be like for him, what that
Right.
loss might be like for his parents. Um,
Yes.
Working with lower income children and lower income families, just inherently what that divide can feel like as a loss, or people who have had to move because they can't, continue to afford where they're living. Like those sort of non-death losses, I always treated as grief. I
Mm,
always addressed them as grief. And
hmm.
so that's why I say I think I was doing the work before I knew I was doing the work. And
Right.
then, got more specifically trained in grief, and just continued a passion towards understanding it more, and coming at it from a place of curiosity, not from a place of like knowledge, because I just know it's different for everyone.
Hmm. Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great place to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Come Back to Love. We're on the radio with Ken Barringer, and we're talking about grief and loss and how it is so just part of living, that the
Hmm.
pain is part of living. And when we honor it, we actually can live more fully. And you were
Hmm.
saying, which I find so interesting, it was your lens because it was what you lived. You
Right.
saw things through a lens of loss. And I think my story about that when you mentioned the client, with, special needs, or is that you helped and are helping people really be seen for the
Right.
truth of what
Right.
is happening, you know?
So yeah, it's such a good point that you're making because I think the way we respond to grief is, we try to make people happy. You know,
Hmm.
we try to like talk them out of their feelings. We try to
Yes.
like, spin things, put nice bows on things so that they can be happy. When in fact, what people want to be is heard.
Yes.
People want to be heard. And then the happiness will come at some point. But I think when we lead with, okay, how can I make you feel better and not feel so sad, which is very common. It's kind of what most people do. People
Yeah.
don't feel heard, and the grief goes underground and
Yeah.
eventually becomes disenfranchised and marginalized.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. And
and
that does not feel good to our systems, our bodies.
no, no, we revolt against
Hmm.
in
Yes.
some like physical form or behavioral way or
Hmm.
just with our thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So what
Yeah,
would you
and
go
no, I
ahead?
was going to say, my sort of hallmarks of doing grief work are really like the three components are, um, as Pema Chodron says, never underestimate the power of compassionately recognizing what's happening. And to me, like that's the prime hallmark is just compassionately recognizing how someone's doing.
Yes.
And the second hallmark is really, I quote people all the time because they just say things better than I do. Um, I think it was Ram Dass maybe who said, we're put on this earth to walk each other home.
Yes.
And that this is a common experience, this is a communal experience, and let's just walk together in it.
Hmm.
And the third hallmark is acknowledgement.
Mm.
Just acknowledging somebody, acknowledging someone's story. And nowhere in those three are the concepts of how do I fix this? How do I minimize this? Or I'll just avoid this, which is the way most people look to manage fix,
Yeah.
minimize, or avoid.
Right.
And to me, it's recognize, walk each other home, and acknowledge.
Hmm.
And I recognize that's really difficult spaces for people to go into. So it
Yeah.
feels, like an honor for me to be able to do that with people.
Yeah. And the people that come to you are brave.
Oh, absolutely. That's the term I use is the
Yeah.
courage to come
Brave.
in and like really look at this,
Hmm.
knowing that this might be a really productive time together if you leave feeling worse, because we really hit on some important things. We
Yeah.
really touch some important places. Because
Hmm.
most people have I'll go and talk to somebody, I'll feel better. Well, you
Right.
actually might feel worse, and that's actually okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually okay. I was just
Yeah.
with a client before hopping on here, the radio show with you, who said, um, you think I'm going to feel worse and then better?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. She said,
Yeah.
yeah. She said, in those, something like that with those words, like
Hmm. Hmm.
the next step is to really start to feel worse.
Right, right, because that is really diving into it. And the
Mhm.
way to get out
Yeah.
is to go through,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, really no shortcuts.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And as my spiritual teacher says, one of them, he says, we're not here to feel comfortable. Like, that's not actually why we're here.
right.
Just be comfortable about everything.
Right. And that, and that's again sort of what's so counterintuitive about
It
grief
is.
too, is that,
Yes.
the outcome of the discomfort is growth.
Hmm.
But we put so much energy into trying to be comfortable. And I think, like the almost like the more you can be vulnerable, the more you can grow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're when you're presenting as invulnerable, it's really stagnating,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. So just thinking about the listeners and what they
Yeah.
might be. I'm always when I'm on the radio, I'm always thinking, you know, what questions might they ask? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm thinking, how does somebody recognize when they have grief beneath the surface that they're not sure, they're kind of used to living with it, like they're not really sure it's something to tend to or something they should do something about. They kind of know
Hmm.
it's there, but it's
Hmm.
comfortable keeping it just below. And maybe we can talk about like how that might show up and manifest in the body and
Hmm.
and what to do if that's the
Yeah,
case.
I think that, is like if we're trying to hold it off in
Mhm.
some way, or we recognize that it's there, but we don't really, we push it away. Usually the first place it does show up is in your body. Um, and people talk about things, yeah, I'm managing my grief, but I have stomach pain all the time,
Mhm.
you know, or I don't have a good story for why my back hurts, but my back aches all the time. And some of that old kitchen table wisdom of like, just go take a walk, you'll feel better, is actually true. It actually does work. And
Mhm.
and I think, we can literally try and work out through our, through some form of activity. People don't have to be super athletes, but just movement, and movement can be dancing, you know,
Yes.
movement can be walking. And that is, a healing component. I
Mhm.
think there's actually, for somebody who talks to people for a living, it's not for everybody.
Mhm.
And there are other means to like really get some relief. And, dance movement therapy or yoga or, something that's, kind of active but calming, can
Mhm.
really be helpful,
Hmm.
for people.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're a proponent of, if you're noticing something in your body,
Yeah.
then one thing you could do is move around, dance,
Right.
walk,
Right.
massage, you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's
All of
part
that.
of it.
Or even like acupuncture can be really helpful
Mhm.
too.
Yes.
You
That's
know,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
And my contention is like if you're aware of something,
Hmm.
to a degree, you're managing it,
Hmm.
because you're aware of it, it's there. It's more, I think when people aren't aware that
Hmm.
what I'm doing is connected to my loss,
Yes.
that's when it gets a little, can
That's
be
a
a little distressing.
more tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you suggest people do about the fear that might come up around dealing with it or looking at it? I
Yeah.
mean,
No, it's a great point. And I think that's probably what keeps people away from
I
dealing
think
with
so
it.
too. Right.
If you look at, grief has like 100% applicability to everyone,
Yes.
but the percentage of people who come in is extremely tiny. So I think, people do learn to manage it in their own ways. Um, but I always think about like to make friends with the fear,
Mm.
not like how do I avoid it, but what do I do when it shows up?
Hmm.
Building some of those coping skills and adapting skills.
Yeah. How
Um,
do I allow fear to be there
yeah,
and just be with it?
and let it come in and know that it's also going to leave too. Um, the term that I really use a lot that I like is what is your counterbalance for it? You know,
Mm.
if you've got like a fear of something, what's a counterbalance that you can do? Not
Hmm.
because like when we talk about like self-care, things like that, it kind of
Mhm.
doesn't mean a lot. And people think of it as like these big things. Well, I don't have time to like go away for a weekend or things like that. But
Mhm.
counterbalances are little things that we can do more frequently. Like even listening to a song that we feel happy listening to,
Yeah.
or witnessing someone's kindness to somebody else. Those are counterbalances, for our fear. Or, I think of like if there's a heartbreak that I'm feeling, what's a heartwarming thing that I can,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
just to try to keep us in balance.
Yeah, I love that. It fits really well with the neuroplasticity work that I do and that I
Hmm.
share. It's
Hmm.
like, how do we find these moments for coming back, to
Yeah,
a more regulated nervous system or just a different
exactly.
feeling that counterbalances, like you said.
Yeah.
I think
And it
there's
doesn't have to be like large and miraculous. It
Mhm.
can be like these tiny
Really
little things.
small.
Right.
Yes.
But again, if we're paying attention to them and we notice them, they really have tremendous value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I always encourage people when that fear is coming up. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's look at that, but let's look at our counterbalance for it too.
Right. That's true. And I think that there can be a fear. I know that's how I used to feel a long time
Sure.
ago, that if I felt fear or if I felt grief, this was my biggest
Hmm.
fear,
Hmm.
that if I allowed myself to feel grief, that I would never, ever feel better.
Right. Right. Like exactly. No, like it becomes this
Like
life
it would just
sentence where
be
there's
everything.
no coming back.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. That was really I would say that was for me the biggest piece in
Hmm.
my healing. It was like I couldn't allow myself because like I didn't want to feel that way for the rest of my life and I didn't have
Right.
any experience or role
Hmm.
models or because everyone was tucking it under the carpet to see,
Right.
oh, like you can feel grief and then the next moment joy, like we just talked about, or like
Yeah.
feelings come and go, like the ocean waves, they come in and then they go out
Hmm.
and then they come in.
Hmm. Hmm.
No understanding that that was actually possible.
Possible. Right. Right. Like we conceptualize it as like a Twilight Zone episode. They're like, I'm going to go into this space and never be able to come back again.
Yes.
But
Reminds me of the games where you get into a room and you're trying to get out.
right, right. We can't.
Can't get out.
But we know that like you said, like the flood water does subside eventually. It
Yes.
doesn't stay acute like that.
Right. Right. Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Well, I'd love to leave our listeners with some more of your wisdom. And so I'll just put you on the spot for
Sure.
another moment.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
to like, yeah, just to offer. I mean, you're so wise and you're so compassionate and warm, and I feel so lucky to be able to actually be with you here. And I know it is
Thank you.
transmitting to all the
Yeah.
listeners, and I
Right.
just wonder what you could offer as a closing piece of inspiration, wisdom, like what do you want to
Hmm.
share? What's your deepest moment you
Yeah.
want to share with us?
I think, and this is gonna sound really cheesy, but in its real simplicity, like we are gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Um, and just monitoring our own, like how intense am I feeling? What's the duration of what I'm feeling? And what's the frequency of what I'm feeling? And just like being aware of those things.
Mhm.
And awareness, doesn't it doesn't change in the moment, but it
Mhm.
changes eventually. And
Mhm.
I guess probably to think of grief not as a problem to be solved, but an experience to be tended to, and
Yeah.
knowing that that's going to look and feel different, over time, and that the loss of somebody 20 years ago is still with me, but looks and feels different now. And we're going to be okay with it. And, we kind of, we're learning to, fly the plane while we're building it.
Yeah. I think that's so important. It's
Hmm.
so important what you said in this time period in life.
Yeah.
There's the micro
Yeah.
experiences we're having in our lives of loss and other, types of losses besides deaths, like you said. And then there's this big, experience of being alive right now on the planet
Yeah.
and what's happening in the country and in the world. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of grief, not for everybody, but there's a lot of grief as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
It's like this collective grief. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
so to
Hmm.
hear like you're gonna be okay. Like it's
Right.
gonna be okay.
Right. It really is. And I know like we say that and we hear that, but it is actually true. And I guess it's sort of a microcosm of grief in general that sometimes it sounds simple, the management, but it doesn't make it easy.
Right.
And I think to extend ourselves grace
Yes.
in doing that and that's really the magic.
Beautiful.
So
Ken, thank you so much.
well, thank you, Robin, for
You're
having
so
me
welcome.
and for your show and what you're doing and bringing to people. Um, it's so important and so vital, especially now.
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing, just a different form, of coming
That's
back to
right.
yourself and what all the things that are here, the love, the
Right.
grief, it's all love to me. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think we as healers and helpers, we all exist because what may be right for one person's somebody else is right for them, in
Hmm.
terms of the healing process. So
Sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
You're so welcome.
Much
Thank you to
appreciated.
our listeners. Yes, you're
All
welcome.
right.
Thank you to our listeners for being here. We're live every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So come on back next week and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful day.